And partway through that process, I discovered manifestation and really started to turn my life around and do some timeline shifting, even though I didn't fully consciously understand how I was doing it. And I met my now husband, and we kind of got pregnant very quickly. Like, we weren't planning on it, but we were both at a time in life where, it's kind of like shit or get off the pot anyway. So we were happy about it. And I was in the middle, like I was just entering my final year as a midwife student. And I got into a little tiny fender bender. Like, somebody rear-ended me from behind, slow moving traffic in town. But that was enough to cause complications in my pregnancy, which ultimately resulted in my water breaking at 20 weeks of gestation. Wow. So that's just halfway through. So my son was half cooked when my water broke.
Wow.
And I stayed
pregnant. It was just a minimal.
So minimal. Bender? I didn't even declare it to insurance. Like, it wasn't even worth pursuing.
So this is an interesting synchronicity for me, but yeah, I'll let you continue and then ask me about it, and I'll share in a minute.
Okay, I'll remember. Yeah. So my water broke, and the prognosis was really poor, but we just had his mid-pregnancy ultrasound. There were no problems with him physiologically, and his heartbeat was still there, and the amniotic fluid was still being produced. And my husband and I decided that we wanted to just wait and see what happened. And he just kept going and kept growing. And I stayed pregnant for another 6 weeks. And at 26 weeks, I don't know. There's a discrepancy. I don't think I actually went into labor, but that's how it was perceived. And anyway, it resulted in him being born. And he weighed just under 2 pounds and was like beautiful and so perfect and so gorgeous. But he was really like 3 months premature. Wow. So we knew it was going to be a rough road, but everybody was very optimistic. And then when he was 11 days old, just the tides turned, and ultimately he ended up getting really sick and needing to have a surgery. And finally there were some brain bleeds, and it was in his brainstem, and it wasn't, we didn't know what kind of life he was going to have, but it wasn't going to be a good life. Wow. And my husband and I, really fortunately, we were in the position to choose to let him go. Wow. But it was the hardest decision I have ever had to make. And It was very haunting for a long time. But we got to be with him, and I got to sing his special song to him as he transitioned out of this life. And I'm very grateful for that. Wow. But it left me obviously devastated, like shattered. Like, there aren't words for the ego death. Like, I didn't even know who I was. And I'm very grateful for my oldest son, because I don't know if I would have, I just wanted to follow him, basically. I just wanted to leave and follow him. Wow. But I had another child to live for, and I had a family to live for, and a partner to live for. And he really opened me up psychically, and completely changed my path in life, and completely reinitiated another wave of spiritual awakening. And I've started to get psychic messages from him even before I conceived him. And that really helped, because I kept telling myself, like, well, he was there before you even got pregnant. He was there all the way through the pregnancy. He's still there. Wow. But I realized that I couldn't connect with him when I was in the darkest depths. I realized it was really a function of, like, I have to learn how to titrate my vibration so that I can meet him. Like, he can only come down so far, he can't meet me in those really dense spaces, which are unavoidable when you're grieving. But I learned how to maximize the little breaks that happen in intense grief. Like, sometimes you just, you disassociate, like you can't handle it anymore, and you just kind of like feel normal for a minute and you forget about it. And I learned how to maximize those. And so I got really motivated to keep my vibration high as possible whenever I could. And that's how I discovered your podcast, because I was also driving a lot, and I was working a job that allowed me to listen to things in the background. And your podcast, especially because you so generously produce 5 episodes a week, there was just like, it felt like unlimited content to listen to that helped me so much. And one of your interviews was with Matt Belair. And that
Mm.
was really interesting because he and I shared the same last name and we're both from Ontario, Canada, although we have no relation.
Wow.
And we grew up about 45 minutes away from each other. But I remember listening to his episode and then I started listening to his podcast. And through his podcast, I learned about the Akashic Records. And those
Mm-hmm.
words just, I don't know, it felt like a big sparkling sign being like, this way, this is the way to go. Whatever Akashic Records means, doesn't matter. Just go that way. And so I Googled it, signed up for a program to learn how to read the Akashic Records. And I went in with the big guns. I went in with my big question, like, why did that happen? Because I for sure thought that I had caused it. I had manifested it, like the death of my son. I thought maybe I was a terrible person in a past life, like something like that. And I was so ready to find out the actual reason, even if it was, a confirmation like, yeah, you were horrible in a past life and you deserve this. I just wanted to know so I could get on with atoning for whatever had caused it.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer that I received was very different from what I was expecting. And that was that it actually really had nothing to do with my soul or my husband's soul. Had to do with our son Killian's soul, his path. It was more of like, you could call it his karma, but it wasn't because he
Mm-hmm.
had done anything wrong. It was like he just wanted a mulligan based on a previous past life. He wanted a do-over. In
Mm-hmm.
a in another life, he was a soldier. I think it was in World War One. I think it was a
Mm.
German soldier with my husband, and he was in the
Mm.
trenches, and it was so awful, like so awful. And he
Wow.
ended up taking his own life. And immediately after he took his life, he felt the regret of that choice. And
Yeah.
so he wanted another opportunity to come in and experience intense suffering and not choose his own exit.
Wow.
And it was just
Wow.
like that answer was
Wow.
the most healing
Wow.
thing I out of anything. And I pursued so many healing paths, but it's like that piece of the puzzle allowed me to understand, okay, it wasn't actually a failure and on any level it was a success.
Right. It was perfectly what was needed and asked for and
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. And it also showed me that like I'm not diminished by that experience, and neither was he. In fact, we are greater because of it. And so
Right.
it just set me free. Like, I don't have to be afraid of life.
Yeah.
Like I know
Wow.
that's not the only hard thing that's going to happen in my life.
Sure.
And I know I'll be able to navigate whatever comes next, even if it feels absolutely brutal and devastating.